I'm FBI Special Agent Jasmine Lee Thompson.
Impossible!
You know, it was one of those sunny afternoons in Oak Ridge Estates, that fancy suburb just outside Richmond, Virginia, where the houses look like they jumped straight out of a magazine, manicured lawns, white picket fences, the whole 9 yards, and this guy, Harold Kensington, steps out of his shiny black Mercedes, finger already jabbing the air like he's declaring war on some invisible enemy. "You don't belong here, missy," he snarls at this young black woman strolling down the sidewalk, her backpack slung over one shoulder, looking as calm as if she were just grabbing coffee. And just like that, before she can even respond, he's on his phone dialing 911, his voice dripping with that self-righteous tone. "Yeah, suspicious character casing the neighborhood, get someone here quick." Her name was Jasmine Lee Thompson, barely 18, with that kind of quiet poise that makes you wonder what stories she's carrying inside, half Korean from her mom's side, half black from her dad. She'd learned early on how to navigate worlds that didn't always welcome her with open arms. Growing up in a military family that bounced around bases, she'd seen enough tension to know when to keep her cool. But this day? This was different. She wasn't just passing through Oak Ridge. She was there on purpose, that backpack holding notes and sketches that could have changed everything if folks had just paused to ask. But Harold? Oh, he wasn't the asking type. He was the HOA kingpin, ruling Oak Ridge like his personal kingdom for 8 years now, obsessed with keeping standards high, which really meant measuring hedges to the inch and logging every irregularity that didn't fit his picture-perfect vision. Deep down, though, it wasn't about the lawns. It was about control. After losing his job in real estate during the crash, he'd poured all that bitterness into patrolling his turf, filing complaint after complaint, mostly against folks who looked like Jasmine, because in his mind, they were the threat, eroding his little empire. As the sirens wailed closer, Jasmine didn't panic. She adjusted her backpack, took a deep breath, and thought about her dad, a retired Navy intel guy who'd taught her to observe, not react. But inside, yeah, there was that flicker of frustration, wondering why a simple walk had to turn into this circus. Harold was pacing now, his face redder than a tomato, barking into the phone about how she'd been scouting homes for weeks, probably planning break-ins, which was total nonsense, but he sold it like gospel. And then there's Mrs. Carla Mendoza, this sharp-eyed widow in her late 60s, sipping tea on her porch across the street. She'd spent decades as a federal clerk, spotting BS from a mile away, and something about Jasmine's steady gaze reminded her of the young agents she'd processed back in the day. "This ain't right," Carla muttered to herself, setting down her cup and edging closer, her instincts kicking in like old habits. The cops pulled up. Officers Mike Riley and Sofia Ramirez, and Harold dove right in, spinning his yarn thicker with every word. "She's been lurking, taking pictures of alarms, timing when folks leave for work. I got footage." Jasmine, still composed, met their eyes and said softly, "Officers, I'm just walking to my aunt's place 2 blocks over. These sidewalks are public, right?" But Harold cut her off, waving his arms. "Don't listen to her. She's lying. Look at that bag, probably full of tools." And you could see the officers hesitate, Riley with his veteran weariness, Ramirez newer, but already sensing the vibe. Inside Jasmine's head, it was a storm. She'd trained for high-stakes scenarios, but not this petty neighborhood drama, yet she kept it together, asking politely, "Sir, what's your basis for these claims? Have I broken any laws?" Harold sputtered, "I run this HOA. I decide who's suspicious." And that's when Carla stepped up, her voice firm but kind. "I've seen her walk by a few times. Always polite, never bothering a soul. This man's jumping to conclusions." But the crowd was gathering now, neighbors peeking from windows, some nodding along with Harold because he'd bullied them into fearing outsiders for years, others whispering doubts. Riley ran Jasmine's ID clean, local address with her great-aunt after her parents' messy split, but Harold kept pushing, his ego on the line. "Arrest her for trespassing, or whatever. She doesn't fit here." And just like that, the cuffs clicked, disturbing the peace. Riley muttered, almost apologetically as Jasmine nodded, "I get it, but please call this federal line at the station. It'll clear things up." In the patrol car, she stared out the window, her mind racing. This wasn't just about her. It was about the mission she'd been prepping for months. the one that could expose real vulnerabilities in places like this. But now? Now it was all at risk because of one man's paranoia. At the station, while most kids her age would have been freaking out tears, calls to mom Jasmine stood straight, answering questions with that eerie calm, like she'd rehearsed for interrogations. The booking officer, Linda Hayes, raised an eyebrow. You military or something? Jasmine smiled faintly. Government work, ma'am, and made her one call not to family, but to a secure line. This is Jasmine Lee Thompson, badge 8923, potential compromise in Oak Ridge request protocol review. Back in the neighborhood, Ramirez was digging into Harold's history. 52 complaints in 2 years, 45 aimed at minorities, delivery guys loitering, moms causing noise, with kids speaking Korean, joggers looking shady. Mike, this guy's a pattern, she said, shaking her head, and Riley sighed, realizing they'd been played as Harold's personal enforcers, his way of clinging to power after his divorce left him isolated, using the HOA to mask his loneliness and resentment. Word spread fast. A tip to local reporter Dana Kim had her sniffing around, an 18-year-old arrested for walking. But with whispers of federal ties, Dana's contacts buzzed this wasn't typical profiling. Jasmine's poise screamed something bigger. By court day, the room was buzzing, feds in suits, media scribbling, Carla front and center, her old agency buddies hinting at high-level interest. Harold strutted in, ready to play hero, his testimony a masterpiece of exaggeration. She was mapping escape routes, photographing weak spots. I protected our homes. But Jasmine's lawyer, Elena Park, leaned in. Your Honor, context is key. And Jasmine stood, heart pounding but voice steady, pulling out that leather wallet flip, and the badge gleamed. FBI Special Agent Jasmine Lee Thompson, the youngest ever at 18. The gasp rippled like a wave. Harold's jaw dropped, color draining as if he'd seen a ghost. Impossible. She's a kid. Judge Harlan Brooks stared at the credentials, verified seals from D.C., then back at Jasmine. Explain. And she did, her words measured but laced with that inner fire. I've been assessing community security gaps. Part of my training, that backpack, classified reports on blind spots burglars could exploit. Her dad, Deputy Director Marcus Thompson, rose from the back. She's my daughter, recruited for her sharp mind, languages, the works. But this arrest? It blew her cover wide open. Carla chimed in, tears welling. I spotted her potential volunteering at the community center, recommended her myself. She's the real deal. Harold stammered. This is a setup, but the judge shut him down. You didn't stop a threat. You derailed a federal op because she didn't fit. Charges dismissed. The fallout hit like a storm. Feds swarmed Oak Ridge, digging into Harold's reign of terror, embezzling HOA funds for spy cams, targeting minorities to preserve property values after his own investments tanked, turning the neighborhood into his fiefdom out of sheer insecurity. Jasmine's career? Shattered. For fieldwork too exposed now, reassigned to desks, her dreams of undercover ops fading, but she channeled it into advocacy, testifying how one man's bias cost national security. Officers Riley and Ramirez got retrained. The department overhauled protocols, no more knee-jerk arrests. Chief said while the community ousted Harold, his house sold, him slinking away to face charges, civil rights violations, years in prison for weaponizing cops against innocents. Oak Ridge transformed. Carla's oversight committee rooted out discrimination, implementing Jasmine's security fixes, turning the place into a safer, fairer spot that drew families from everywhere. Jasmine, walking those streets again months later, felt that mix of loss and hope. I came to protect, got profiled instead, but look what rose from it. Real change. Yet, as she gazed at the sunset, doubts lingered. Was Harold just a bad apple, or does every neighborhood hide folks like him? Quick to judge, slow to question? Makes you wonder about justice, right? How one assumption spirals into chaos, but also sparks reform. Hey, if this story hit home, drop a like if you've ever been misjudged, or subscribe for more real talk tales that unpack these messy human moments. But tell me in the comments, was Harold's downfall fair, or does prejudice like his deserve a second chance? Share your take on community power plays. Have you seen something similar? Let's chat. Your stories keep this going.